Good afternoon and welcome to the Gain Line, which is Wales Online's daily Facebook Live Rugby World Cup debate show. It's been a busy morning so far. We've had 5 team announcements now ahead of this weekend's quarterfinals, so we've had a busy morning. I've got Simon Thomas and Andy Howell here ready to go through all of that and look ahead to Wales's team announcement tomorrow as well. So a few surprises this morning. What surprised you most, really, about all?
It's a funny one. The other thing I'd say to start off with is it's suddenly got very real, isn't it, with the teams coming out for the weekend. You know, it's there's been a little bit of a lull the last couple of days. You know, there was the huge reaction of the weekend. Now we've got the teams. Now we're up and running. I think most of the talk is about the sides that have been picked for England and Australia. The big thing that came out of the England side, no George Ford. He's had an outstanding tournament playing at 10, but they've decided to go with Owen Farrell at outside half and Manu Tuilagi stepping into 12 with Henry Slade at 13, which seems, I think, really sort of a counter perhaps to Samu Karevi, who Welsh fans will know exactly what he can do. It's not the first time they've let George Ford out for a big game, Andy, is it?
No, it's not. And I don't know how you can say that George Ford has had an outstanding tournament because they haven't played anyone, because the match with France was cancelled and the Argentina game was over in about 10 minutes after the Argentines.
You can only play who you're playing against.
Sending off. But, you wonder what Eddie Jones is up to. What's he actually done for the confidence of George Ford if anything should happen to Owen Farrell? It's almost a panic selection, playing Farrell at number 10 because they fear Samu Karevi running in that number 10 channel. What's interesting for me is that Eddie Jones has shifted Manu Tuilagi actually to inside centre to deal with Karevi, and there's potential there for either of those players or both of them to be red carded because they're so physical, and with these new tackle regulations, anything could happen.
In fairness, Ford couldn't have done much more in the games he has played, though. He's brought a spark to the England game. And if you look at the way that England play at their best, is when they've got the front football with Vunipola and Ford and Farrell controlling things as a 10-12 access. The other thing is I don't think Tuilagi's at his best at 12. I think he's better at the outside centre. So yeah, it's a surprising selection, but he seems to have gone for size, really, in particular to counter Karevi at midfield. So it's fascinating, really.
Yeah, it's clear they're looking to do a job on Australia up front, and they're just probably going to kick the ball behind and just play a territory-based game.
And Australia have picked a new guy at 13, Andy. You mentioned him before the tournament.
Yeah, Jordan Patea, who's a red-hot talent, but he's inexperienced.
He only 2 starts, is he?
Two, I think. For Australia's limited. He only played limited Super Rugby because of injuries. In Australia, though, they are talking about him as the next big thing. And if we think back, Simon, years ago, 1991 World Cup, pair of young centres, Tim Moran, Jason Little, thrown in. And, with key figures in Australia winning the tournament.
Yeah, I've got no issues with it. I mean, the one that surprises me a bit is Haylor Petty not in the back 3, because I think he was excellent against Wales, wasn't he? And they've gone back to Curtly Beale, haven't they? That's kind of a strange one. But Cheika's a bit of a law unto himself. Eddie Jones is a bit of a law unto himself. So let's see who's got it right, I guess.
So England haven't won a knockout game at the Rugby World Cup for 12 years, but they've won the last 6 matches in a row against the Wallabies.
Do you think? Done your research, haven't you?
Do you think they'll come out on top this weekend?
Yeah, I do. I think they just have too much power for Australia, and I think they'll strangle them up front. If Australia get enough ball and play near a perfect game behind, then they will trouble them. But I just can't see that happening with anyone. When I look at that England pack, it is on paper it's fantastic.
It's interesting they've gone for George Cruz on the bench, haven't they? They've started with Courtney Lawes. They've gone for real physicality there. And we both said England to win in yesterday's show, so I think we're probably going to stick with that. Although I think those teams, they've certainly made it a more interesting game.
Okay, let's move on now then to New Zealand v Ireland. So All Blacks have gone for a strong team. Skipper Kieran Reid gets his 125th cap, and Ireland then Rob Kearney comes back at full back and Peter Romani is back in the starting lineup. Any huge surprises there for you?
Ireland have gone tried and tested, haven't they? And they really have.
As always, Joe Schmidt, their coach, he goes back to experience. I actually think there could be one big game in Ireland this World Cup, and it could be against the All Blacks. Ireland have beaten them twice in the last 3 times they played them over the last couple of years, so they shouldn't have no inferiority complex. And yeah, even though Ireland lost to Japan at this World Cup, actually play it in New Zealand may suit the Irish style more than Japan did.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting they've gone Carney. Lama's played really well in the tournament, but yeah, it's the end of Joe Schmidt's reign as well. I mean, it could be his final game, in terms of...
And Steve Hansen.
Steve Hansen as well, you know. So I mean, Schmidt is very much going back to the people who've sort of brought him success over the years. Again, as with the England-Australia game, I do find myself sticking with what we said yesterday, which is New Zealand to win the match.
Okay, and moving on then to South Africa v Japan on Sunday. Japan's team news is due out tomorrow, but South Africa have gone for 13 changes and they've gone back to the team that beat Italy.
They have picked a giant team. This is one of the biggest South African teams in history. They are enormous, and it's not just a start team, it's on the bench. Rassie Erasmus, their coach, has gone for 6 forwards on the bench and 2 backs because he knows the threat of Japan is their mobility, tiring the opposition out. So basically Erasmus is planning on changing 6 of the 8 members of his pack in the second half for fresh legs. They're going to just, it's simple, they're just going to try and blast Japan away up front.
It's a bit of a statement of intent as well, going a day earlier, because they're the only sort of Sunday team that's been announced. You know, the two huge second rows on the bench, France were low on the bench. They've got such power. When you think they've got Malcolm Marx, one of the best hookers in the world over the last couple of years, on the bench as well. Yeah, you do fear for Japan in terms of the physical contest, but I think it's going to be a fascinating contrast, though, isn't it? Because clearly South Africa are going to play very physical, very forward-based, power-based, and Japan are going to want to get away from there. It's going to be offload, get it wide as quick as you can. So in terms of a rugby spectacle, it should be fascinating.
Yeah, you know, I've done a piece today which is going to be going up on Wales Online with the great Gareth Edwards, one of the greatest players of all time, and he's predicting a shock in that match.
Japan do win?
Well, he thinks they got a real chance, because don't forget now, these new tackle regulations actually benefit in Japan, because it means people can't tackle so high to smother, so it means their offloading game is easier to play that sort of game.
It's certainly going to look to play it fast, that's for certain.
Okay, and don't forget we are live, so any questions or comments, please do get them in, and we will put as many of them to Simon and Andy as we can. Okay, so rounding up team announcements for today then, which game this weekend do you think is going to be the most tightly contested?
I think England-Australia. We saw when Australia played Wales that, you know, when they do hit their straps, they can play some very, very effective rugby. They beat New Zealand this year. They've got quality on that side. I'm a bit surprised Timur isn't playing fly half. I mean, I think that he showed against Wales what he can offer. But I think that's going to be a tight game. But I do think that England probably have got the greatest strength within their 23 as a whole. So it's still pretty, as we said earlier, stick with England.
I think New Zealand and Ireland is going to be so close, because I think the Ireland team are perhaps over the top a bit, but I also think the same about New Zealand. They're also in transition. I think if Ireland could bring their best forward game, they will cause New Zealand problems, because Ireland is such a physical side. It could be a very close game, which will actually be decided by the magic of someone like Bowden Barrett, because what the All Blacks have got is those X-Factor players who can just swing it.
I think there could be one other close game, and
go on.
Wales-France.
You see this? Wales. If Wales hit the straps, they'll win that easily.
By how many?
By 15-20 points. But you don't want to overdo it in the quarterfinal, because you want to save energy for the semis.
Good to see you being confident, Andrew.
So why are you thinking?
Just think that recent record of Wales-France games have been pretty tight.
Yeah, France haven't played that well this tournament, apart from 35 minutes against Argentina. They weren't great against Tonga or the US.
We'll see you on Sunday.
Okay, don't forget you can get your comments in, so let's just go through a couple of questions now. So Richard asks, England, New Zealand and Australia have made a couple of surprise selections. Will Wales follow suit, and if so, what could be the surprise selection?
It'll be a surprise if Wales spring a surprise, let's put it that way. I mean, I don't think we're expecting it. I think everyone being fit is what we're hoping. The team does pretty much pick itself. I suppose the one area, as we said yesterday, is the back row. It could go either way, and I suppose if Moriarty started, or if he didn't start, you could understand both, because he's played against Fiji, he's done a lot in the Six Nations, but I still think they'll probably go for that back row trio that played those first couple of games, which is Wainwright, Navidi and Tipperick. I think it's a nice balance to it, and you never know with Gatland. He might have something up his sleeve, but can you see any changes, Anne?
Well, the only change I could possibly see is that back row when Ross Moriarty starting. What's actually interesting for me, if he starts, who do they leave out?
Well, it's a tricky one.
Would it be Aaron Wainwright, Navidi, or, dare I say it, Justin Tipuric?
I think it has to leave any of the three out, which is why I think he will ultimately go back to that starting trio.
If we look at the Six Nations, though, Moriarty had a big game against France. He was one of Wales' best players that day, so maybe as well. And he's starting to show some form at this World Cup. With his extra size and carrying is a possibility he could start this match.
It is the big selection issue. It's the one really which you find hard to absolutely call either way at the moment.
The other issue which Wales have got to deal with is Jonathan Davis's knee injury, heavily strapped in training. Do they actually risk him in this game or not? How big a call is it going to be?
What do you do on the bench then? Because Shingler's obviously been covering second row. Do you feel that Beard or Bradley Davis have made a case to be starting on the bench?
No, I'd still go with Shingler.
You would you?
Yeah.
Don't forget, the Wales team announcement is due out at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, so one of us has got a very early start in the morning.
Me as well.
You can catch all of that team announcement and talking points on Wales Online throughout the day tomorrow. Let's have another question then. Who is asking, England pick Farrell at 10 and after playing forward there for 3 pool games, what are your thoughts on that? And can you imagine any other last 8 team making that call now?
I mean, it is cup rugby, isn't it? You can see it's cup knockout rugby. I mean, you look at what Farrell does with Saracens, who've been sort of the most successful cup team in European terms, along with Leinster in recent years, and he knows how to get games done. But I do think... if you listen to what Eddie Jones has talked about, he's talked about the first 20 to 25 minutes being absolutely intense physically. So I think he probably wants to sort of set a strong stall out there defensively, certainly, and show that there's no weakness in that midfield. And then Ford will come on. But I mean, it is funny because over the years we've heard lots of people talk, and Wales have said about it in the past, if George Ford is playing, you'll get, Jimmy Roberts flying down. It doesn't always materialise, really. And I think whatever happens, I think George Ford is going to come on and play an important role in the game.
Okay, next one now then. Gavin is asking, would you have Halfpenny on the bench on Sunday, and also is Rhys Carey going to be involved in the matchday squad?
Well, I would personally, I would actually consider starting with Halfpenny in
and
the
dropping
team.
who?
George North.
Big call, Andrew.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to happen. But you could start with Halfpenny at fullback, Liam Williams on the wing, or Halfpenny on the wing, and Liam staying at fullback. What they're going to have to consider, of course, Owen Watkins is going to have to be on the bench if he's going to have to be on the bench, whatever, because of the Jonathan Davis's knee. If Jonathan Davis starts, is he going to last the full game? Is he going to last an hour? Is he going to last 2 minutes? That is the
and you've got Parks' hand injury as well, which is still lingering, perhaps. Yeah. So I think, I don't really think the Halfpenny will be in the 23.
Yeah, the other one we haven't mentioned, Dan Bigger, of course. He's recovering from his second head injury at the tournament. He's had a scan and everything. Everything looks good, but until we get that actual team announcement, we're not 100% sure. Yeah. Of course, if Bigger starts, which I would expect if he's fit, obviously you're going to have Rhys Patchell on the bench, and he's another goal kicker, so then you don't need Halfpenny.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything points to Dan being okay, so you'd expect him to start, and I think Owen Watkins realistically will be the outside back cover.
We've got another question here from John. So if Jonathan Davis is not able to last a full 80 minutes, if he starts, of course, what do you think about putting George North in to cover that position and have North take the ball running at the front? Yeah,
I don't think it'll happen unless they go with Halfpenny on the bench. I mean, they could look at this and say, right, they want Halfpenny there, he played well against Uruguay, very secure player to have on, and you could then have George North covering the centre, but how much has he played there in the last
he probably hasn't played since he played for Wales against, I think it was against France in the Six Nations.
Be a big call, wouldn't it?
Yeah, where Owen Watkins scores is defensively is very good, and he's an expert at stripping the opposition of the ball. I can see what this chap is saying there about George North carrying the ball at the French, but it's a balancing act. You also got to be you need, it's a specialist position.
I guess we'd like to see perhaps his North starting on the wing and doing what the likes of Redrada coming looking for more work, coming into midfield, because North coming at an angle, the way Cuthbert used to do for Wales off 10, he could be hugely effective. When his very first game for Wales, remember, did exactly that, off the 10 through a big hole. I'd love to see him being involved more in that. tactic.
France, as do most other countries, they will fear George North, and of course he did score 2 tries against them, which helped swing the game in the Six Nations. This is the interesting one there. Reece Carey on a bench. Personally, I wouldn't have him on a bench because he had to come on early because of he's still a work in progress for his scrummaging. I would have Nicky Smith on the bench, but Carey certainly would bring a presence as in a ball carrier late in the game. But can he risk that? It's
a difficult one because Gatland obviously sees huge potential there. Saracen saw huge potential in signing him up after 3 starts for Cardiff Blues, and he does bring a point of difference because he's got the ability to break the line and the pace to go away. So I don't think they'll go there, but I wouldn't be hugely shocked if they did, because that's the kind of selection you do sometimes see Gatland make.
Okay, I've got one more question now then. Mark is asking, are we in danger of taking France a bit too lightly? They have nothing to lose and that will make them dangerous, and he says, gifted Wales the win in the Six Nations opener.
Warren Gatland won't allow it. I think he'll be hammering it on this week about how dangerous France are, and the Welsh players should know that. They can't be complacent against the French, because with French teams, if they do happen to get it right, they are so dangerous against any opposition. So Wales will have to be on their mettle, and I just can't see this is a World Cup quarter-final. It's a one-off. Both teams are going to be right up for this match. If they're not, there's something wrong.
France are kind of it's interesting talking to a French journalist this week, doing a piece with him about it, that their target was getting out of the group, because it was a very tough group with England and Argentina in this. They've obviously already achieved kind of the bare minimum, whereas a lot of people would see semi-final really as the target for Wales. So I think they're more relaxed in that sense, and they've got a nice little rift in the camp, which always works well for the French, with issues between the coach and the captain, so I understand. And the way they played for the first 35 minutes against Argentina, if they produce that, they're hugely dangerous. They've got quality players. I mean, we understand Dupont, it looks like he's going to make it at scrum half. I think, if you look on the wing, Pinot, or even the man that comes in from Raka, real threats if he plays. There's quality there. Olivon has been excellent in the back row, so we shouldn't take them lightly. But they should also, I think, understandably, I think this is the case, there should be a quiet confidence there, because they've won 7 of the last 8 games against them, albeit some of them have been tight. But I think if Wales played to the level we know they can physically, sort out the defence, which has been a bit of an issue, get solidity in the scrum, then I think they should win.
I think Wales are also a fitter side than France, and physically stronger as well. But what I was surprised here today was Simon saying that Wales' target getting to the semi-finals. Wales' target should be to win the World Cup. We are Six Nations champions, and recently been on a record win.
Once again,
so I think you were playing down Welsh expectations.
Once again in your career you've misquoted me. What I actually said was that was seen by many as the bare minimum of the target.
So what would your target be?
Semi-final.
Hang on, he just shot himself in the foot.
Onward swiftly.
Okay, I've got one more question now. So John is asking about the scrum. He says, we seem to be staying very square and driving straight, yet we don't seem to be getting significant reward from the refs. What do you think about that? And do you think it is any sort of problem for Wales?
Well, I mean, the scrum has been an issue all the way through the summer and into the tournament. It's become, I'd say, more secure. Wyn Jones has done a decent job coming on the loose head. And it's interesting me to hear from the French camp that they've had issues as well. Slimani, who we remember, has been involved in the 100-minute game a couple of years ago. He's been penalised quite a lot. There's been a few penalties on the other side against Poirot. France, I think, have only had about 75%, 78% success on their own put in. So you've got 2 teams here who are coming in with a few question marks over the scrum. And I think the interpretations from Jacko Piper, you know a lot about Jacko. How will you referee the scrum, man?
Well, he's not a referee I rate very highly, to be blunt about it. The one thing I will say about Jacko Piper, he's a bit indecisive, so you never know what you're going to get. One thing I'm glad is Jacko Piper is refereeing this match, and I hope he doesn't referee if Wales play New Zealand later in the tournament, or that would be in the final, because I've seen him doing the All Blacks against Wales in the past, and I've been unhappy with some of the decisions. Right. So he's not my favourite ref. I think there's a lot better refs, but I don't think the referee will be an issue for this match. I think Wales got the potential to win it quite comfortably.
Hope you're right.
Okay, thank you very much for tuning in. You've been watching the Gain Line, and we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Don't forget you can catch all of Wales's team announcement news on Wales Online tomorrow.